EdTech Sandwich, yummy!
Hey, welcome back, EdTech Sandwich 2013 KySTE session episode. We got a lot of folks, a lot of people want to talk to. Right over there, you got Mr. Brett Foster.
And across the way is Marty Park.
Yes, all right. And as you can see, we have a very astute panel with us today. And we're
Astute. I don't know that word. Please explain.
Can somebody explain this? I heard someone else say it earlier.
It's something you put outside your trailer to step up.
Nice. Who we have with us right now, I want to introduce Miss Amy Johns from Fayette County Schools. Heads up all the really great ideas with instructional technology. One word for us.
Innovation.
Nice. Brett Foster, who you have over there?
Right next to me, we have Mr. Kermit Belcher. He is the assistant superintendent. We went big time,
big time,
with an assistant superintendent from Mason County Schools. Kermit, favorite gadget of this past year?
iPad.
iPad. Mini or full?
Ooh.
I'd have to say, just because of hopefully testing coming out, it's going to be the full instead of the mini, because they say it's not very good for the kids to actually scroll down when you're testing on the mini. You want to see the whole question at the same time. So that's one reason. Plus, when we bought ours, they didn't have an iPad mini. So that's another good reason.
That's why you got to like that.
Yeah.
You got it. And right in the middle, stuck in the middle.
He's sandwiched.
He's sandwiched
in the middle.
An EdTech Sandwich is Mr. John. No hashtag McMillan. He will not participate in any hashtags whatsoever.
None at all. None at all.
And he is from Graves County Schools, CIO.
Right.
What's your top technology right now?
We're trying to create a collaborative environment, get kids to create knowledge, create content. Creative.
Excellent.
Creation.
Well, guys, we're here at KySTE this year. Tell us a little bit of something that maybe you're excited about seeing this year. Amy, what is something that you, and looking at the matrix of the different sessions and things like that, what was something that was really exciting for you this coming up in this conference?
I think looking at ways to push online learning and online content to the next level, opportunities for students to do that and take things up a notch.
Yeah, it's really cool because I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about that here in a few minutes, looking at next generation devices and how we're going to be using, what type of devices are we going to be able to use to do those type of online assessments. McMillan, what are you excited about at KySTE this year?
More ways to have kids putting knowledge out on the internet. Cloud tools, SkyDrive, things like that. Anything where the kids can create knowledge and share it with their peers, share it with people across the country. That's what we're trying to do, trying to kill the printer.
I like that. Hey, kill the printer.
I like that.
Kermit, what about you?
Basically just sharing with colleagues and networking. We always steal some good ideas from other folks around the state, and also there's looks like some good sessions that we're interested in going and maybe doing some. We're looking at common assessments and things.
Turns
like that.
out Ms. Johns just shared in a session a little bit ago, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Room
We've
was
done
packed?
lots of sits, yes. Great.
Wonderful. So one of the first questions we had that, there's a reason this panel's together right away. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of students having devices. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, and we've looked at a lot of different models. Whether you provide them or you have students bring their own, right? So can you say a few words about that and we just kind of toss it around a little bit, what you all are doing that is working for you?
Sure. Well, in Fayette County, we started this year with the Bring Your Own Device initiative, which we have kind of gone into quietly. No big fanfare with that.
Right.
And part of that is because it's going to take us a while to get all of our teachers ready to really embrace that in a way that's going to make a difference instructionally.
So a slow roll.
Yes. I call it an organic rollout.
Nice.
Are you seeing a significant number of students bringing devices already in the pilot schools that you're working with right now?
I think we are. The schools that are doing it, I think at least 50%, whether that's elementary, middle, or high.
Wow.
Some of the classrooms that we're doing that, and so that's good. I think that we have half of our students that are bringing or choosing to bring something, but then there's also the issue of what to do with the other 50%. So.
And have you spread it out between elementary, middle, and high school in your pilots, or have you focused on one area or the other?
Mostly high school so far, in terms of an intentional pilot with a small group of teachers, but I know that we have some middle schools that have done some things. There's a learning day about a month ago. We had a school that was doing some things with that too. So some schools are kind of rolling on their own, and then some are doing a little more intentionally with some pilots.
And how many schools do you have in Fayette?
Oh, I don't know, 54.
But the
something like
most
that.
important is my alma mater, LAFAYETTE, Lafayette. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good answer.
It's my alma mater.
I know.
What do you, with your the teachers you've been working with for in your bring your own device kind of flavor, what's working for you right now?
Well, I mean, it just kind of, it was good. We were refreshing our high school. We only have one large high school. We were refreshing our high school this year. We were planning to redo our network, and BYOD became something that was kind of added on with our high school refresh. So getting the teachers ready has been quite the challenge. But it's been embraced. I'm seeing a lot of devices. I didn't know kids had so many devices. We're seeing enough numbers for, we have 1,500 students. We've seen 5,000 devices touch our network. So I'm sure those aren't all from the students, but students have multiple devices. So teachers have to get ready for that. Our TIS is very good at training. She set up a great program. We've gotten the community involved. So,
ISTE has referred to that 3 devices per person. Usually, if we could get to that mindset of, not that everybody's going to have 3 devices, but if we can prepare for that, and it's kind of what you're
right.
getting into.
We, the biggest question we get asked when people come to see our programs, what do you do for the kids that don't have the device?
Mm-hmm.
So, we did increase the number of devices that we put into the high school. There's plenty to go around in an environment. You do have to address those kids who don't bring their own device, but I think we have enough technology, we have enough sharing going on to where everyone has access at any given time.
And I read an interesting article on the Huffington Post today, actually, and it said that 52% of all children 8 years and younger have access to some type of mobile device at home. And what that says to me, within 1 or 2 years, those devices will be probably the device that students bring to school. So 50%, potentially 50% of students will have, at 8 years or younger, so maybe 10 and younger, will have a device they might be bringing to school. And so, Kermit, what are you all doing right now in Mason County Schools in regards to looking at the idea of BYOD and one-to-one?
We currently have a one-to-one iPad at our high school. We have about 850 students. From K through 8, we refer to that as a blended learning environment, and we have, for instance, the elementary school, we have 2 iPads and 2 MacBooks in every classroom. So one thing we didn't want to do is sacrifice, have a one-to-one in our high school and sacrifice our younger kids. And our teachers have really enjoyed that at the younger level because, for instance, map testing, we would all be trying to cram into 2 computer labs to get to map testing for 3 weeks, which you shut down your library, your computer lab, and no kids would have access to technology. So now when that comes up, we're pulling the MacBooks from the classrooms all together, and we've cut that down to 1 week as far as the testing. So they still have the iPads in there, and it's good to have that mixture. The high school one-to-one, our teachers and students have done a wonderful job, and we've been to Woodford County and visited, and they just it's to go in a classroom and see some of the things that the students are doing versus last year. It just makes it all worthwhile.
Everyone up here has said the same kind of thing, that students are making stuff, and that's the power, right? And access. And
they want to make things.
Absolutely.
They want.
Absolutely.
They really do want to create content. And somebody, I don't know where it was, I saw it on Twitter, but when a kid, you may have posted this, when a kid takes a test, when they try to do something for the teacher, they do just enough to pass the test, but when they're sharing with their peers, they go above and beyond. They want to be the best.
And they want to impress their peers.
Exactly.
Which is, it's kind of the whole idea. It's the whole idea of making stuff, I think. Making great stuff.
Right, exactly. So you said, Kermit, that you all selected the iPad for your one-to-one initiative in your high school.
Yes, sir.
Looking back in hindsight now, would you make that same decision again, or is there some new technologies that have come out over the last year that would maybe make you want to rethink that process?
No, I wouldn't change anything. And we looked at MacBooks, and we looked at a lot of other tablets and a lot of different variations. And the iPad has really it's really worked well in our environment. And there's a lot of other devices, and bring your own device. There's no wrong answer to it. It's just mainly having access
Multiple right answers.
for the kids. And our kids still bring their own device. They just have an iPad as well. So sometimes they may want to use their Wi-Fi and get around their network, use their own 3G. So they'll pull their phone out. But as far as the device, it has really been from price point and from being able to the technical end is, I sometimes with the notebooks, if I had 850, I think that would be a tough for our technicians.
Support.
But, it would.
Is that what you're-
Yeah, the support would be, and also, there's pros and cons to either side.
Chromebooks.
Are you looking at Chromebooks?
It's got. I mean, you're going to have to. You're going to have to look at something like that. Our budgets aren't going up.
Right.
So, I mean, iPad. Essentially, the Chromebook, same concept as the iPad. I mean, it's not the traditional laptop. It's not the traditional computer, but it's a way to give access at a lower price point.
Now, are you talking about the all titanium executive Chromebook?
They're only
That I just
$1,200 each.
No,
Yeah.
Mr. Park, in our district, we're doing Project Lead the Way. They're going to create their own Chromebooks. No,
Raspberry Pi?
something like
That'd be
that.
awesome.
Well, there's around $300. Is that what the Chromebook?
Yeah, you can get in there
Yeah.
for
Now, the
$299.
executive
Yeah.
Chromebook.
It's about 1,200.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Mine will, of course, have to be 17 inches, right?
Is that what John has
Obviously.
here? Is the
Boom.
executive? Yeah.
It's something.
Thumbs up. There you go.
What about you, Amy?
Devices, we have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
We have lots of iPads in our district, mostly because that was the only device that would work on our wireless before we did upgrade starting last summer. So that's been a big part of our bringing our device rollout has been infrastructure. And part of the reason that we're doing that slowly is because not all of that's in place yet. Most of our schools, but we still have about 10 elementaries that are left to be upgraded. So prior to that, that was the only device that would work. What we've seen this year is schools that are buying still a lot of iPads, but looking at other things. We've got at least one school that has purchased some Windows 8 tablets. We have several schools that have gone with an Android-based tablet.
So you have
different things. So
and in just your environment, you have an interesting test bed that you can go and
We
kind
do.
of see different perspectives from, and really, it's. I know what you focus on. It's
Right.
not to see the perspective from the adult's view, but also from the kid, the student's view.
Right.
And so that's neat. What about, Brett? One thing that you've talked a lot about is replacement strategies.
Right. I've often said here recently in talking with a lot of my peers, this is one of the most difficult times in my career in trying to make a decision on what are the next devices that we're going to be purchasing. One, because we have the necessity of making sure the device that we use is going to be capable of meeting the minimum requirements for our assessments. And at the same time, those devices often are not the types of devices that students are using right now in their own personal life. So usually we have a workstation, and then students are using mobile devices for their day in and day out use of technology. So I guess, how are you guys looking at this right now? And if you're going to be making a significant purchase, and knowing that you have to make sure that assessment is taken care of, where do you sit with that right now? Because I'm really struggling with that.
And can I add to that loaded
Sure.
question? The structure of where you do that. Is it traditional? Is it just one for one what we're doing now, like labs and that, or is it something totally different? That's kind of, I think, also adds to that question.
Yeah, I'll start out with that. One thing is I hope that we move to where everything's web-based as far as assessment, and you really won't have to worry about what device that is. I'll just give you an example. We're one-to-one, and for compass testing, we had to pull some older computers out just for our kids to test on this week. So when
They're like, what do I do with this thing?
So when we can get, and I know it takes time to do that, but that's something that we look forward to being able to do. So, and as far as the kids, it's important for them to have ability to create, and also for them to have access, constant access. So a blended environment is one of the things I think you really have to look at.
John, how are you facing this?
Well, it's same thing. Assessment is the tethering point for us. As innovative as we want to be, we're constantly tethered to what tools we use to assess. And I mean, ACT isn't really, they're not exactly cutting edge right now. So in our environment, we're trying to keep enough computers around to do the map testing, to do the compass testing, to do the ACT, end of course, all that stuff. And at the same time, you know, Chromebooks, iPads. There's some iPad minis now in our system. We have a lot of people, a lot of the elementary schools using the iPod Touches.
Right.
But I mean, it's a challenge right now. I mean, we're not getting any more money. Part of what we're going to have to start looking at is how we're going to raise revenues ourselves. It may not be something that we get from tax funds. It may be something where we have to raise money, and then, you know, it's not just looking at that device. It's looking at the money that we're going to have to come up with. Are we going to sell ads on our networks?
Right.
Are we going to, you know, things like that. It's not just the device. It's a bigger picture than that.
Amy, how's Fayette County Schools approaching this concept or this hurdle?
Well, I think probably we're at a crossroads, honestly. After the legislature did the IDU project several years ago, we in Fayette County kind of took that on as our own. And so we have continued that 5-year replacement cycle for desktops. And so that has been something that we do at the district level that schools don't have to do. And prior to that point, schools were given a pot of money and they had to determine how many desktops or whatever else they were going to buy. And so we have continued that. So that's let us keep labs and some of those and desktops in classrooms. But I think with testing, that's going to become a bigger issue as we look at what other kinds of devices. At this point, we've given schools a lot of leeway to kind of apply for some funds each year, and that's why we've ended up with iPads and Androids and different things in different schools depending on what they were comfortable and what they wanted to use.
But there were some interesting conversations that led back to assessments.
Absolutely.
Those were being purchased.
Right.
Right.
Right. And some of that discussion now is about screen size and whether or not you want to buy an iPad mini or a 7-inch Android,
Right.
whatever, or do you want to stick with something that's 10 inches because we think that's going to be kind of the sweet spot in terms of assessment. So I think that's going to become a bigger issue that we haven't looked at a whole lot up to this point. But as budgets get a little more crunched this year, I think we're going to have to start reviewing that more and maybe having to make decisions like we're only purchasing 10-inch screen size, mobile devices, that kind of thing.
You know, Marty, we've been grilling these guys pretty hard.
I know.
I think we might need to let them
Where's
get a
my
little-
sandwich?
Marty, where are the sandwiches? You were supposed to bring them.
This is EdTech Sandwich. And because it's EdTech Sandwich, you're getting a sandwich.
Awesome.
It's an IOU for a sandwich. So when we let these guys get a breather here, get a drink of water, or something like that.
Absolutely.
And let's have a quick little break here and listen to a few of the people walking around KySTE right now. So we'll be back in just a few minutes with more EdTech Sandwich live at KySTE.
KySTE 2013.
I'm Jeff Jones from Fayette County, and by gosh, I'm looking at the menu, and EdTech Sandwich is on it.
And we are back.
Yeah!
Wow! We are back!
So EdTech Sandwich, this is KySTE 2013 special episodes coming right at you. We had a panel change, and I want to introduce Miss Erin Wagner, who has a lot of titles after her name, one of which is former classroom teacher, now instructional technology director in Jessamine County Schools, and also a future KySTE president.
We got the Prez. We got the future Prez.
Yeah, is that
2015, yeah.
2015?
VP next year.
You know what else happened in 2015?
Back to the Future.
Back to okay. More on that later. Hey, so let's start off with, and we did some pretty fast-paced questions there, but let's start off with something I've kind of been thinking a lot about based on some data that Brett shared with me in his district. But it's this idea of, John actually said, killing the printer, right? Getting rid of that. And I kind of been thinking about it as the anti-technology, right? It's promoting the non-use of digital. And so I'm curious as to a couple of the things, when I say that at the top of your list, how you can kind of get rid of that anti-technology.
Don't start with me, start with them. I have to think on that one.
Well, can you think of other anti-technologies that we face right now? The printer and copying machine is definitely one of them. But if you can think of some other things.
I'll start with that.
Yeah.
I know we spent $199,000 to copy machines last year for our district.
199,000. How many students?
And 2,900 students,
Okay.
200 teachers. So that was one of the selling points when we were going for our one-to-one, was listen, we're spending more on copy costs than we are for technology replacement
Exactly.
cycle.
Have you seen have you looked at that yet?
We have, but we haven't really pushed it because we're
Right.
given a transition period.
Right.
Yeah, but that's going to be a definite focal point. And
I'm
so-
curious to use Amy's organic word, but I'll be curious soon, and we'll get back with Kermit
Yeah.
because even though you haven't pushed it, but
Yeah.
is it just kind of happening?
Right. And we're collecting that data and going to put some of that together. And actually, we've been interviewing our students on how the one-to-one's going on a regular basis. But, another thing, when we talked, like right off the bat, the high school did agendas. So that was $5,000 that they didn't have to do.
Right.
Graphing calculators. I mean, so all those things, I think they've spent $70 a graphing calculator. And so all those things that you have to think differently. And I know it's tough to say, well, we're going to commit that to a one-to-one, but you're not going to come up with a balance, but you
Right.
might say, hey, we'll offset some of that cost. So I think for me, I'm like Macmillan, the coffee machines is something that's really high on our list right now.
What about you, Aaron?
We are a Moodle district,
Uh-huh.
and so we do push encourage our secondary teachers especially to do Moodle and to be paperless as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And but we still have, we have schools where our alternative school is one-to-one, and so with iPads, and so but we still have people saying, I need to print from my iPad, set it up to where I can print from the
Right.
iPad. Well, and we're switching to Moodle too, so they can upload files from their iPads. Can you not do this instead? Can you not,
Right.
And schools, at a school level, I know they are cutting the cost of the copier and the printer, not counting the lease and that kind of thing. Like they're cutting back on how much paper teachers have and monitoring how many copies they make and that kind of thing. But it's not. Somebody's never going to tell a teacher you can't make any
Sure.
more copies.
And I don't think we would,
Right.
I like paper.
Yeah, and sometimes it's necessary. But we looked at, for our high school English teachers, we looked at an online portfolio where the kids could upload things and the teachers
Right.
could comment back. And the teachers were saying, well, I really want to print it off so I can write comments on it. I'm just more comfortable that way. So it's a shift in mindset, all around to get them to know. It might be easier for you to do that, but
Right.
think about if you print 6 copies of a kid's rough draft, how much paper you're wasting.
We had a teacher that you mentioned printing something off and writing on it. The teacher actually would use GarageBand and would read the paper and make notes as they go through, and then they would just email that the notes to the
That's
student.
fantastic.
I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Amy, you have some hurdles or some anti-technologies that you're all battling with right now?
Well, the one that comes to mind actually related to paper, but textbooks and the idea behind replacing textbooks, and we really haven't gotten into a lot of conversations yet about what that looks like in
Right.
terms of whether we're developing things. But where that conversation has come up is, we charge kids textbook funds, but we really don't have the money to buy the textbooks,
Right.
and so some of our schools are starting to leverage that. I think like other districts have, to move that money toward technology, so that as we have kids bringing devices and have to deal with the ones that don't have access or that we need to supplement, that some of those funds can be used for that. So I think that's trying to shift that mindset away from that you have to have a textbook for those kinds of things. And if we take that money, then that's the beginning of that conversation.
Cool. This is really, kind of great panel for that discussion. The next thing we've been thinking about is this idea of the Internet of Things. Like this idea of, we have all kind of devices that get access, and not just devices that we're traditionally talking about, but other things as well. And so, how has that affected you, or impacted you positively? Maybe there's some budget things in there, but you're putting a lot of devices on your network that get access to the internet, or to your network. Does anyone want to share that?
In Jessamine County, we just opened up a guest network, and immediately saw our bandwidth just basically plateau. And
Yeah.
so we had to go through and rate limit our users. And this is not even, we still have schools that aren't even letting kids bring things in yet. This is not
Right.
even all of our schools taking advantage of the bring your own device.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and then we have a few, you know, pockets of Apple TVs, and you know, we have lots of things that are on our
So
network.
a great
So-
example, Apple TV is something else that sits on the network that people can do stuff with.
Right.
Aaron, have you all defined what a device, like an appropriate device, like what are the minimum requirements for a BYOD device? Have you all defined that, or are you just pretty open
If
to whatever?
you've got it and it connects, bring it in.
Okay. And it's interesting what kids bring, you know. Blake and Rusty on my staff a couple weeks ago went out to all the schools, and we kind of have this, you know, we're going to help all these elementary students get their own devices on. And the things they bring is like, you know, everything from iPads and laptops to what are they called, Yamagata toys they think are devices that will get on the network, to like these little wireless like speakers for their iPods that they think that that's a device that get on the network. So it's interesting to see that what students now, they feel like everything that they have is a device that can be used and to be connecting. I just didn't know, that would be interesting to see if, do any of y'all have, like, in your BYOD spectrum, do you have something that is like a minimum requirement for what students can bring, or what you will not support at all?
No, we don't. I mean, we pretty much say the same thing, that if it's Wi-Fi ready and will connect, and really we leave a lot of that to the kids. I mean, we certainly offer support and have done some documents and videos and different things to help with getting devices onto the network, but ultimately, you know, the beauty of bring your own device, hopefully, is that you're familiar with your own device at least well enough to get it on the network. And so that's pretty much left up to them. And so we haven't really put any limits. If it's beneficial to you to bring in, then go for it.
For you guys?
Most our students just bring cell phones mostly. I mean,
Yeah.
it hadn't really been an issue. So the bandwidth, I mean, obviously that is something I consider, and that was one of the hurdles we had to overcome. We had to go back, and we had a guest network, and we had to go limit each user. And now.
How much do you? What's your limit for?
You know, I was afraid you was going to ask me
Yeah.
that because I can't think of it right now. But
Make a number up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did I hear a
64,
nine?
84.
I heard a niner.
Say one
Niner.
meg, that's what I
Whatever
was
you
gonna
got.
say.
I really do think it was 2 meg, but don't hold me to that. And we were interviewing some students last week, and it's interesting. I just sat back in the back, and they really, some of them had no idea who I was, and somebody from Morehead State was actually asking questions, and so they're like, well, how do you cheat using the bring your own device? Or how do you, and they would answer those questions, and then one of them said, well, I was watching Netflix, and I'm thinking, surely he's not doing it now. And I won't share the app that they were using to do that, because maybe some of the other districts, their kids aren't aware of that yet. But so yeah, it's a constant.
Because all
battle,
the
too.
viewers of EdTech Sandwich.
I mean, it is widespread. You don't want this stuff to get out.
And they're right here, right now.
But you know, and one of the hardest things for our teachers to give up was control.
Yep.
And that is really, really difficult, and changing that mindset because you can't control it. You just have to.
But you can and do have to monitor it.
Exactly.
Which is another hurdle, I think, that you have to get over. You know,
Right.
you can't be calling the tech office every time there's an issue. It's
Right.
classroom management.
Now, guys, I'm sure that you all are familiar with a TV show, which it may not be on the air anymore, but Inside the Actor Studio, where James Lipton would ask those
From the
final
stack of cards.
the stack of cards, those blue cards. He would ask every guest a series of questions at the end, and there was probably about 7 of those on his show. Today, we only have 2 for you, and so I'm going to ask the first one, and Marty's going to ask the second one, and this will be your opportunity to give your immediate response to the question and any closing statements you would like to make today as well. So the first one I'm going to ask is, in looking at the year ahead, what is the biggest hurdle in educational technology for you to overcome?
For me, it's getting our teachers caught up. It's the training and getting them comfortable with understanding that most of them, if you ask, will say that technology is great and they believe in it at a belief level, but in terms of actually shifting instruction to make it worth the effort, that's where we are. I think that's the biggest hurdle.
Aaron, what about you?
I think that's a huge hurdle for us, but I'll try not to copy and pick something different. It's budgets. I mean, with all the things, we have a district vision, and if the technology office is expected to help meet that vision, and beef up the infrastructure and that kind of thing, buy more devices, do the IDU, upgrades within house, and we don't get any more money and
Right.
less money than we have gotten, it's impossible to do.
And Kermit, for you guys in Mason County Schools?
Well, the two biggest, they hit both of those. So I mean, it is finance. Every single school district is going to be tough. And again, changing instruction. It's from stand and deliver instruction for student engagement and the teacher being more of a facilitator and doing things like project-based learning. I think those are two big hurdles that it takes time to overcome.
Excellent. Good answers.
My
guys.
rapid fire question for you.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward, but these next couple of days you're going to walk through maybe the vendor hall. You've got big show at KySTE 2013, by the way. And what are you excited about?
Want to start, Kermit?
Kermit, what are you excited
Go back
about?
this way.
What excites me as far as the technology is actually seeing what the kids come up with that even looking back a year ago or 2 years ago that we weren't doing, thinking a year from now what that's going to be.
Right.
And putting the technology into the students' hands and seeing what develops. And
So when you do that, what kind of new technology are you excited about?
as far as a device or as far as an
Just
instruction?
anything.
One of the things I really hope to see is more like online management, like for our kids going to high school to college, and actually when I think a lot of our kids graduate, at least in Mason County, they go and they have a class on Blackboard, and it is totally different than a teacher right there talking to you.
Blended. It's that.
Yes, and it could be a hybrid class, or you might not even see the teacher. So we've really been using Edmodo, and I know a lot of other schools use a lot of different things, but I think it's important for us to help prepare those kids for the college readiness and doing that. And that may not be new, innovative, but it is new teaching strategy to change from turning that paper in to the kid get on Edmodo and see that this is here,
Right on.
and turn that in.
Right on. Aaron?
I always like to go through the vendor hall and see the new stuff. Just see what the new toys are that, the ones you guys haven't previewed yet, because I've obviously seen all of those. But
Well played.
yeah. I always, like to see what the next biggest thing is. And we, in Justin County, we always have an STLP engineer here, and I always like to tell them to go through the vendor hall. And see, a student. And so this year we have one. Last year we had 3. But I always like to tell them to go through the vendor hall and see what they see and what they think.
Will you report back to us what your student says?
Yeah, and that's a totally different mindset sometimes than what we think is the greatest thing ever.
Absolutely, you're exactly right.
And then I also told everyone from my office that's here to get all the pens that they can, because we don't have money for office supplies next year.
The pins.
So yeah, pens and post-its.
Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong.
Pens and post-its.
Nice.
Suck up.
Back
yeah.
scratch.
We got 850 iPad bags. So next our cases next year.
See?
Yeah.
Amy, what about you?
Well, a couple of things. I think for me, in terms of the conference, the networking and seeing what other districts are doing, because it's very easy, I think, to just know what's going on in your world. And this is probably the best opportunity to hear what other districts are doing and how they're doing, whether it's bring your own device or iPads or infrastructure or anything else. I think that's huge. And then in terms of vendors or content, that kind of thing, I think it's my interest right now with personalized learning and figuring out how to, and part of that's blended learning and online, but how do we take that to the next level for kids and be able to provide better
Make it
for
real.
them.
Make
Absolutely.
it real for them. Absolutely. Well, hey, listen, this is our first ever live panel.
Congratulations, guys.
Way to go.
You did
Way
a
to
great
go.
job. I want to thank Kermit Belcher and Aaron Wagner and Amy Johns, and also
John McMillan.
John No Hashtag McMillan for being with us today, making the inaugural live EdTech Sandwich. I think a great success.
Absolutely. Yes.
Let's do it again.
So, hey, we'll come back at you with session 2.
EdTech Sandwich, yummy!